What's up, guys? Welcome back to the shop. As you can see, it is starting to fill up in here with multiple projects that we have going on. Let's get into it. And we are right back to where we left off last week. So we are working on a full house pack. Not really a full house, but we've got a full kitchen. We've got a gigantic island in that kitchen. We've got a bar, a little built-in desk unit right outside the kitchen. Then we have a laundry room and a hallway mudroom type thing. Last week, those big giant cabinets that you see right there are the hall mudroom thing. And they are paint grade. The laundry room is paint grade as well, so we're knocking out the paint grade stuff first, and then we're going to move into the stain grade stuff, which is all flats on white oak. So Rowdy got going with some items in the laundry room, and I got going with cutting the MDF doors for the mudroom built in. And then I did have to run out and head over to this office built-in that we did real quick, and I brought the camera just to get a couple shots so you guys could see it all finished up, and I think it looks really cool. I am really stoked with how this thing turned out in this really cool old house in downtown Sisters, and it just looks pretty sick. Pretty stoked with that. And then back to the shop. Alright, let's get back to work. So, cutting down these doors. We're using MDF because there are paint grade doors, obviously, and we are putting saw curves in them to make them look like shiplap. But before we do any of that, I need to fit them, get them all cut down to size. And so obviously on that built-in, there's no top rail on it right now. There's also no stiles on it just because they're too long, because the ceiling in this house is higher than my ceiling. And so that's why they're not attached. But you get the idea. And then me and Rowdy are just discussing what he's working on. He got started with some face frames for the laundry room. And there's like there's a sink cabinet in there that gets like a furniture base. A lot of cool details on this job that are a little different than some of the stuff we typically do. This designer is she's doing some cool work, so it's fun to get jobs like this that are a little bit different than usual. And so here we go with putting the saw curves in my door panels. Always start with a sample, make sure my gaps are correct. I'm also using a blade that has a flat bottom, so my cut is nice and square and it doesn't have like, it's just a nice flat dado in there, and it doesn't have weird angled teeth marks or anything. And I do put the curves on the front and the back just because I think it will look nice. Also, I think it's going to help it a little bit from wanting to bow. Maybe not, but just in my head, I think putting the saw curves only in the front, it'll tend to want to cup a little more. I don't know. If they want to cup, it's going to cup. But you can see my saw curves were only like 1/8 of an inch deep. So I think we'll be okay. And those big doors, they are about 60 inches tall. So those are obviously the ones that are a little concerning. But we're going to put plenty of hinges on them. They're not too wide, and we have stops behind them, top and bottom. So I'm sure that these things are going to be fine. And we could move over and drill some holes for hinges. And this thing makes such a mess. I've got to figure out dust collection for it. I've got to figure out dust collection for my whole shop. Obviously, we do have dust collection. As you guys know, it's not the greatest. But this is something I'm working on, and I should have a solution for this very soon. Very, very soon. I'm actually pretty stoked about it. So And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to make something else work. Either way, we're going to be upgrading our dust collection system in the very, very near future. Now, I didn't have hardware yet. I'm actually waiting on a bunch of materials for this job. It's been snowing here like crazy, so getting deliveries has been, things have gotten delayed. But that's not why we didn't get our material for plywood yet. We have a delivery coming next week, but we also have a big hardware delivery coming, and we actually are using a new supplier now. So that was a little bit of a transition and delayed things a little bit, but we got it set up now, and so we should be restocked and ready to go with all our hinges and everything like that. And Rowdy, while I was doing all that, this is that furniture base he's working on, which you will see that all come together here in a little bit. I got to edge banding some plywood parts for this giant upper cabinet in the laundry room. And then I like to label the back edge when I'm putting shelf pin holes in my parts, just so I always know what's up, what's down, because I use stops on here, so the gap from the top edge of my plywood to the first hole, and then the bottom edge of my plywood to the first hole might not always be exactly the same. They're pretty close, but as long as you're referencing off the same edge, top or bottom, your holes will line up. Hopefully that made sense. But this is the cabinet. It is got that center divider that's offset to the right because it has 3 doors, and obviously you need a place to put your hinges and attach one of that middle door. And then it has an upper section as well, and then it's got that big finished end over on the opposite side. And so I get this laid out, and then I'm going to have some spacers in between the upper and lower section. And so I rip down some pieces of poplar, and then I'm going to biscuit and glue these things together. And for this giant cabinet, with the face frame being so big and the whole thing, I decided to just attach this. We're going to attach this thing permanently to the box now. You guys know I normally would use Lamello Tensos, paint the face frame, and snap it on after. But I thought for this one, I feel better just getting it all together, and then we'll mask it off for painting, rather than trying to spray this giant thing and maneuver it around and then snap it on the box and not damage it. Just thought it would be better to have it on the box, masked off, see if I can speak, and then put it on a cart and we can wheel it in there and just spray it. Teamwork makes the dream work. And then I just clamp this thing up, let it sit, and then it's one giant cabinet. And so with these big jobs, I've done a lot of big cabinet packs, and the most important thing is it's very easy to get overwhelmed and be working on one thing, and you're thinking about all the other things that you have to do. But you got to just kind of take a deep breath. This is what works for me. Focus on what you're doing, and just don't stop moving, right? There's always something to do. Just keep moving. Just keep chipping away at it. You're not going to be able to get it all done in one day. Taking time in the beginning to plan ahead, make sure you have materials, make sure you have cut lists, make sure these things your processes are kind of dialed. Obviously, there's always going to be things along the way that, don't go the way you thought. But the most important thing is to just keep moving and to just keep chipping away and doing something. And then a week goes by and you look back and you're like, dang, we got a lot done, you know, and you're just checking things off the list. So don't stop. And here Rowdy is continuing with this furniture base. So he made his front piece, and then these are going to be the pieces that we're going to glue on behind, because we want this to be like the return, so it's solid going back. So it doesn't just look like it has the nice furniture face and then it's hollow behind it. We want it to be solid going all the way back. This will make more sense in the end if you're kind of confused with it right now. But so now with that cabinet being all done, I could throw it up on my bench and get ready to glue this face frame on. And since I'm permanently attaching it now and it's not painted yet, I'm just going to use regular biscuits. The other reason I'm using regular biscuits is because I totally torched the blade in my Zeta by shooting into a Clamex connector last week. And yeah, so that cutter was shot. So I'm waiting for another cutter, which came in on Friday actually, but I didn't have it on Tuesday or whatever day this was. I think it was Tuesday. And if you'll notice, some of those pieces, like that center rail, is not flush with the plywood. We left a 3/8 and at the top and bottom too, 3/8 reveal there, and that's going to act as a door stop for the inset doors. And I've gotten a lot of questions about, well, how do you do that? How do you get your biscuit to line up with your face frame? Your Lamello biscuit joiner comes with a detachable plate. So basically, the one that flips down, you'd flip that up, and then you would put that plate on, and you can adjust the depth or the distance from that plate to the actual cutter, so you can do different offsets. And now I'm putting together some cabinet boxes for the sink cabinet that goes in the laundry room. Then I screwed those boxes together, and then I'm attaching the toe kick. So this box, it's upside down obviously right now. The sink cabinet is lower. It's not actually a farm sink. I guess it's kind of looks like a farm sink, but it's going to be like an integrated stone sink. So the countertop is going to come across, and then the sink will be made out of the same material basically as well. And here is this giant upper cabinet. And this thing is not going to be fun to install. And luckily I won't have to install it, Greg will. And there is that furniture base. And so the furniture base will be, our doors and drawer fronts on it are going to be flush with the furniture base and the stiles and rails on the side. So this cabinet, it's a little funky. Even talking with the designer, she's like, well, it's going to be inset. And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of, but also kind of overlay, because there is no top rail or anything. It's only the bottom rail, which is the furniture base, and then two stiles on the outside coming down. And so I told her, like, well, basically, yeah, it's going to kind of look inset, but the way I'm going to build this thing is it's not inset, it's overlay. So anyways, all that matters to her is it's going to look exactly how she planned. So, and you could see that furniture base turned out pretty cool. Then I back over to the saw, ripped up some MDF, and started cutting the doors and drawer fronts for the Vanity. Same thing, getting that same curved detail. And so obviously we're centering these saw curves on the panels, or whatever the width of our pieces are, so that all those panels they look equal. A lot of questions about hardware that I'm using. For hinges, guys, I'm using all Bloom hinges, full overlay, half overlay, full inset, and I use 0 mm plates all the time. And yeah, between those 3 hinges and 0 mm plates, for what I do, I can get everything done with that. And this thing is gonna look cool. I'm pretty stoked to get it painted. I laid it on its back just so I could put all my drawer fronts on and check all my reveals and my gaps. And there it is. It's looking pretty sweet. Pretty cool little vanity. I'm waiting on drawer boxes as well, so that's why those are not in. But yep, there is, did I say vanity? I mean, I guess it's a vanity, but it's in the laundry room, so it's just a sink cabinet. And then I repeat that same process for this giant upper cabinet. Get the doors cut, put the kerfs in them, and then tape them on and look at it so I can see how it looks. And it looks pretty cool, especially with that finished end panel with the saw kerfs in it as well. And these are all going to be painted white. I forget the actual color, but it's a white. And then the next day, Rowdy started milling up some oak. This is flat sawn white oak. This stuff is all going to get wire brushed. It's going to have a really cool finish on it. And it was cold that day in the shop. That was, or outside especially, it was like 0 degrees or -4 or something that morning. And so, yeah, we were still bundled up in the shop. The mini splits were having a little bit of a hard time keeping up that day, but all good. My brother-in-law working with us on Fridays. He got to sanding, getting these panels all dialed in, breaking those edges, taking his time, doing a good job. And then I was back to cutting more plywood. We went through a lot of plywood this week, between this week and last week. Maybe 30 sheets. Got another full stack coming this week. Lots of coffee. Lots and lots of coffee. Always. And look at that, man. I'm working on something for a new table saw as well, and we are going to get dust collection dialed in this place, guys. I'm excited about it. Dust collection at the table saw is always super difficult, especially without a over the blade guard or not guard. I guess a guard. But just dust collection over the top of the blade to catch all that stuff that comes off of it. And so yeah, I cut up all this plywood. This was all for the kitchen. It's getting oak edge banding because the lowers, there's one elevation with uppers and it's all inset, but the lowers kind of the same style as that vanity, except it's going to be oak, so it's overlay as well. And it was just a busy Friday afternoon. We were getting stuff done. I got boxes going together, Rowdy's milling material, Roger's over there sanding, and it just felt like a good, productive week. At the end of Friday, when everybody left, I just kind of walking around and looking at everything that got done, and just feeling pretty good about where this project is at, because this isn't the only one we have in the works. This is just the beginning. So feeling pretty good. Like I said, easy to get overwhelmed, but just trying to keep good pace and just keep knocking things out and checking things off the list. All right, so ending the week, we still have this big built-in behind me. We got the doors, obviously everything all cut for that.
Still need to remove some face frame pieces, do a little bit of sanding. There is an end panel on the left side. I'm waiting for delivery on some more sheet goods this week. We do need a 10-foot sheet for that. And then the rest of these items over here are those laundry room items. And again, we're waiting on a 10-foot sheet for an end panel in that room. And then that one is pretty much all done, except for the drawers, waiting on the drawer boxes. And we are painting the laundry room, like I mentioned. That is getting painted on site by a professional finisher. He's doing like a hand brushed, old looking paint job on it. So that'll be really cool. All right, so over here, we've got a bunch of kitchen cabinets put together. These are lower cabinets. Again, like I said, we're waiting for another sheet good delivery, so that's why there's no backs on those. So we'll get 1/2-inch backs on those next week. I don't know if you guys can see behind me, we've got all those oak panels that Rowdy's been gluing up. Those are for lower doors and drawer fronts. We have more over there. They're all stickered so air can get around them and they'll stay nice and flat. And yeah, as we get these boxes put together next week, we're gonna cut these things down to size, fit them to the cabinets, and then put the saw curves and everything in them as well, because they're gonna have the same look as these panels that you saw us cut this week. These doors and drawer fronts here are for that big built-in over there. We've got some plywood parts here. We've got more plywood parts on the cart behind you guys. And then we've got some more oak panels over here in the corner that are in clamps. Let those cook over the weekend. And that's really it for now. One other thing that we did squeeze in this week were these cabinets here. So these was an insurance job. One of the builders that I work for, they do some, they build custom homes. They also have like a remodeling side, and they do some insurance work here and there. So the cabinets that there was water damage and everything, the base of all the cabinets that were in there got damaged. So all the doors and drawer fronts and the drawers were all good. So they just needed some new boxes. So we threw these together this week and just installed all their doors and drawer fronts. So every once in a while we get a random little thing like that for some of the builders that we work for, and we get that done. I wouldn't typically, if somebody called me, a builder that I've never worked for before or something like that, called me for a job like this, especially at a time like this where we're really busy, I wouldn't do it. But you got to keep the people that you do a lot of work for happy. So sometimes, you know, we do stuff like that. All right, and that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys are enjoying these style videos where you kind of get to see some different things. Next week, I think, is going to be a good one. We've got some, one of the elevations in this kitchen has these pocket pivot doors that we've got some cool hardware coming for. And those are the doors that need to go in the vacuum bag, and we're going to lay up our own veneers and stuff like that. So that part of the job is going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to that. So that's going to be kind of my main focus next week. And Rowdy is going to continue on these boxes and getting drawer fronts in, or drawer slides in, and backs on them, and getting those things wrapped up, cutting drawer fronts down, and all that kind of thing. Keep plugging away. We do have to paint the laundry room. So once we get the sheet good delivery next week, we can knock out the few remaining items that we need to for that room. And yeah, we're just gonna keep plugging away at this thing. So that's it for this week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I appreciate all the feedback that you guys have been giving. Our Patreon, the link is below. I know I say it every week, but we do a weekly Zoom call every Friday. There's like 4 or 5 of you guys on there. Some weeks it's 1 or 2, some weeks it's 4 or 5. And it's always good conversation. So if you want to join that, link is below. Join the Patreon. Other than that, if you want some merch, my website's below, and my socials, other socials, and all that kind of stuff. And that's it. That's all I got. See you next week.